Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show, and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice, and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Chris Dashew.
Feel like a prisoner, Mike. Feel like a prisoner.
On this episode, we are talking about the 3rd episode of the 4th season, By Dawn's Early Light. It is the first appearance of Patrick McGoohan on Columbo. Will not be the last one, and we'll be talking about that as we go through the rest of the Shabby Detective. This one directed by Harvey Hart, written by Howard Burke, and it dropped on October 27th, 1974. This is the season of 90-some minute episodes. Can feel it with this one, but at the same time, I feel like I'm watching 2 performers, McGoohan and Falk, just going at it, and I'm really a fan of this one. Chris, what did you think of By Dawn's Early Light?
I don't think you oversold it. When you talked about it on the last episode, you were like, this is going to be a good one, and this a pivoting point for the show. It was pretty good. Look, Patrick McGoohan, jokes about the prisoner aside, he's a fantastic actor. Even if he himself was not necessarily the most exciting or entertaining person in the world, this is the same guy who said, and I quote, James Bond has too much sex for me, so I'm not interested in playing the role, which is, boy, stodgy dude, I would say. I think the episode's fun. I'm not the biggest fan of a military academy setting. I think it's a little, I don't know. I get it. That's maybe my only quibble, but in terms of it being a quibble, it's a minor one. I think this is a pretty good episode, and the back and forth between Peter Falk and Patrick McGoohan is why you're here. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I really like this one, and I like that it shifts so many times. There's this whole idea of who was the intended victim. At one point, Columbo, he's floating ideas out there, and he floats this idea of pretty much the main character of this is Patrick McGoohan as Colonel Rumford, and he is a very set in his ways, military person. He's been running this military academy. We'll talk about his sexuality later on, I'm sure, because there's some interesting stuff going on with that as well. He ends up meeting with this board of trustees president, William Haynes, who is played by Tom Simcox, and he was a graduate of the academy. I believe that McGoohan was his instructor or just a fellow student. Yeah, something like that. And he does not like Rumford whatsoever. And Rumford is pretty much just a major prick. We've talked on this series many times before as far as the unlikability of the criminals. And this one is very interesting because I dislike him, but at the same time, I see him living by this code and he really respects this code. And the code is what gets him in trouble because he's such a stickler about things. He can't let things go. And even when Columbo is there floating these ideas of maybe William Haynes got killed by accident and you were the intended victim, he almost immediately rejects that out of hand. And it's, what are you doing? Columbo's almost handing you an excuse, an alibi, a reason for you to not be the suspect. But at the same time, I'm pretty darn sure that Columbo knows exactly what's going on from the beginning.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where I am with you on that. Columbo shows up and he already knows. Patrick McGoohan has a big target painted on his back the moment Columbo shows up because he is, I don't know, it's like Columbo has like an asshole meter or an asshole detector. And the assholiest character often is the one that he gravitates toward. And that character, even if we like them, in a Johnny Cash situation, an asshole, but charismatic asshole. This one he's just an asshole. He's like a Robert Culp level asshole. And it's fine. Like you said, this being a military adjacent episode with it being at a military academy, it makes a lot of sense to have this kind of character in the show and to have this kind of character interacting with Columbo because for me, that's the draw of the episode, obviously, or any of the episodes of Columbo is the interactions between Columbo and the criminal. But when it's done well, it's done well. And in this episode, it is done well. It's done as well as I think we've seen, but not a surprise with someone like Patrick McGoohan.
Patrick McGoohan, who in his first interaction with Columbo is basically trying to shoo him away because he looks like a homeless person that's on the grounds. This is a private institution. And then he talks to somebody, this man here, he's wandering around as, oh, you mean Lieutenant Columbo? And then he starts to sing a little bit of a different tune, but really he cannot hide his disdain for Columbo most of the time. There's even a moment where I wear a uniform and you wear, I suppose that's a uniform. And just, he's so pompous about everything. But they have that moment where they share the cigar. And I find that to be one of those moments where they could have cut that whole scene out very easily. But instead, that's the moment that I'm talking about when it is McGoohan and Falk just going at it and enjoying the scene together really makes a difference for me with an episode like this.
And I think to your point, these two actors together are giving it the room it needs, but then these two actors understand that they need to give each other room in the scene as well. And giving the scene room to breathe is one thing, but also giving each other enough room within the scene for each other's performances, especially when, again, I'm not going to say Falk's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but Falk is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this scenario because the character that Patrick McGoohan is playing is such a specific kind of character. And it's such a specific kind of role. And like you've already mentioned, you don't want to spend any time around him, but that's the intent. Patrick McGoohan is nailing the role exactly the way it's meant to be played because he's just this stodgy asshole who has, like you said, he has no ability to bend the rules, even when he knows following the rules will get him caught. I guess he's confident in his cover-up enough, but at the same time, I don't know. That's what happens when you go toe-to-toe with Columbo, baby.
Yeah, it's that obsession with stuff. I mentioned to you offline, I was remembering Captain Queeg from the Caine Mutiny when it comes to this character that he's playing, because he is that same kind of uptight, follow the rules type of person. He gets obsessed by strawberries. Who ate these strawberries? We had this tin of strawberries, and he does this whole thing where he's measuring out the strawberries. Okay, if it was this many people, then it's these amount of strawberries. He's measuring this whole thing out. That still leaves 2 cups of strawberries. What happened to the strawberries? And it so reminds me of McGoohan here with the brandy that's being made. And I don't understand, and hopefully somebody can come into the comments and tell me what this is. I really did look this up. I was trying to figure out what the answer is. I don't understand why they're hanging the brandy from the ceiling and it's only visible from one spot, one particular time of day. It's very much like the Well of the Souls from Raiders of the Lost Ark. It puts the stick down the cannon, looks over, sees in that one particular spot this apple brandy or brandy that's hanging there. And then that becomes his whole like, oh, I have to find this out, but I'll do that after I murder this person. And I love Columbo is just, oh, you waited to that? That doesn't seem like you at all. Why would you wait to go after this? Because that's not your style, because he is studying McGoohan's character like he's got him under a microscope and just figuring out what makes this guy tick. And I love it.
So best I can tell, the thing with the cider is I think that the cider, you need to have it freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw to get it.
Is it like Applejack?
I think it's something like that, where it's like the concentration of the alcohol and freezing and thawing, at least is my interpretation of it. Maybe not. I mean, I could be wrong, but the episode doesn't do a very good job explaining it. It's the least interesting part of the episode because it feels just yada yada. And not yada yada, but it's definitely the part where, okay, I get it. This is a military academy and there's alcohol. Okay, it's not okay. But did they really have to be making the alcohol? Couldn't they have just had alcohol that they were buying? Or did we have to have this subplot at all? Or I get why it's in this episode, because again, part and parcel, if it's a college episode, like a stodgy boarding school, you could have gotten away with the same thing. But I don't know. He felt just hanging on. A little vestigial tale. And we've talked about this with Columbo before. This is how he gets caught, really. In this one, however, I think to your point, when we sit here and talk about this kind of character gets himself caught, the cider itself, they spend too much time on the specifics of it without giving enough information to really explain anything. They didn't need to go that far into it to get us to understand why this kind of person would not be okay with this taking place where he works, because he's this kind of character who has zero tolerance for anything. I get all of that, as I'm sure you do. It's just part of this didn't need to be, they're making the alcohol. They're just bringing fucking beer in. This is a lot of hoops to jump through to get to the same spot. It didn't make as much sense as I think they thought. Unfortunately for them, they didn't have to do a whole lot of heavy lifting in this episode because the performances are so good, we can overlook it.
Though, if he just gave it up, if he just could not worry about that one violation of the rules slip, he might have gotten away with it. But instead, every single time, he just has to hold on to those rules and does things like the one cadet that I don't want to say he's torturing this guy, but it really feels like he's just picking on this one person. It's very Great Santini to me, where he's just picking on this one kid the entire time. And he's cleaning this cannon's supposed to be some sort of big honor, but it's totally not. And that he finally ends up running away. We've got that little side plot of Columbo tracking this kid down and seeing him on this boat and all this. I'm like, all right, this is entertaining, and this kid is okay. He reminds me almost of a young Martin Sheen, though he's not Martin Sheen, obviously. Next episode, we're going to get some more familiar faces coming back. But with this one, it's pretty much Bruce Kirby is the face that we see that we've seen before on the show. But I love that we have the introduction of Bruno Kirby in this. I think this might be one of his first roles, and he doesn't even go by Bruno Kirby.
He's great, but he does factor into the cider of it all, as it were. It's great to see him. I mean, obviously, he's a fantastic actor, and both him and his dad are fantastic actors. I don't know, I would say he's not used enough, but obviously he's not. But again, at the same time, that's fine, because Patrick McGoohan and Peter Falk are this. In a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like much happens in this episode. It just feels like Columbo's following Patrick McGoohan around for a day, is what it feels like. It's a very weird episode, I think, on top of everything else, because it almost feels like it's happening in real time. Because it's only over a day, right? Not even. We see Columbo sleep, and that's it. One night, and then the next morning, he catches him.
I think it's 2 nights. I think he's in that bunk 2 nights. Yeah. Because there's the one night where he gets woken up, or early in the morning, he gets woken up by the guy who slaps him on the ass. Come on, let's go. And then the next night is when the surprise inspection happens.
That's right. That's right. Okay. But still, most of these episodes, we can't even tell how long it takes place over. This one is, 2 nights. So that's strange for Columbo. And also, again, this is Columbo on location as well. It feels like a bottle episode in a lot of ways, which, again, if you're going to do this kind of episode at this kind of place, it does make sense to not have Columbo leave, because then it's just, there's no opportunity for anything else other than Patrick McGoohan and Peter Falk to interact, which is obviously the benefit of the episodes. In a lot of ways, this might be one of the best episodes of the show just by the design alone. Just essentially saying we are going to hang the hat on, we understand what the benefit of having a great actor in the main role is, because you just want to see the two of them go back and forth. So let's just give the fucking people what they want and just give it to you for an hour. So it's an hour and a half episode. It takes about 20 minutes to get to the point where Columbo shows up, which is fast too for this show. Because in an hour and 40 episode, which normally is another 10 minutes, normally it hits about half an hour before we get to Columbo. And Columbo shows up in the first 20 minutes he's in the episode. So on top of everything else, the episode itself and the writers know that this is going to be one worth getting to the relationship between the two warring parties quicker than not. So yeah, I'm impressed by this episode's commitment to the back and forth between the two of them. I just think, as crazy as it sounds, I think they could have done more with it. I don't necessarily mean just more Peter Falk and McGoohan talking, but push it in a different direction or give it some other flavor for a little bit longer. Just keep pushing it and massaging it and seeing what comes out of it. Because they're, like I said, they're making a really great case for this being one of the best episodes we've seen of the show so far in terms of the interactions between the main people.
And it's shot in a very good way as well. The direction is top notch for me on this. I love the setup with the cannon and how we have the explosion happen. We see a little bit of the explosion. We cut away right as it happens. And then you see McGoohan in the distance and the camera just moves in on him. And we get that nice tight close up of him while people are screaming in terror because this horrible thing just happened in front of them. But yet there's no emotion on this face other than perhaps satisfaction and just, this is what this person deserved. He was going to try to take my academy away from me. And I don't care what anybody says. This is my place. There's not going to be any women at this place. We are not going co-ed. We're not going to become some sort of community college or institution around that. This is a military institution, goddammit. And this is my place. You do not come into my turf and start to, what's the line from Patriot Games? Bark at me like a junkyard dog. This is my thing.
Yeah. The thing is, like, they don't show it because it would have been awful, but essentially a human being is blown up next to a cannon, blown up while standing next to a military anti-aircraft gun, really. Patrick McGoohan essentially loads the shell and makes the shell more explosive than it needed to be. And this guy's just standing next to it and just explodes.
Yeah, and he shoves that rag down the thing so it'll backfire on him.
Yeah.
And even with that, they're like, well, this was an old cannon. It was bound to happen. So they could have tried to just play it off as natural causes. Oh, yeah, no, sorry. I think at one point they say it was from World War I. No big deal. Columbo finds that rag on the ground. And I love him there with the rag and sweeping his foot around the grass and just pulling that through. And then Bruce Kirby talking with the other detective and just, he's like, what do you want from me? Look at what I have to deal with. Look at this guy over here in the fucking grass, sweeping his leg around, getting down on all fours and finding the stuff. I got to deal with this shit. Everything else is so easy in my life other than this guy.
Did you notice on Patrick McGoohan's outfit that he has the 1st Infantry Division patch, the big red, he has the big red one on one of his shoulders. I believe it's on his right shoulder. What is that, like the longest serving division in the regular army is the big red one, the 1st Infantry. So the characterization of him is interesting because, like you mentioned, there's a little bit of it that's, I don't know. What were they going for, Mike? You tell me, Mike White. What were they going for with this character who's not married, who works at a military academy.
Surrounded by young boys.
No co-eds. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What were they going for here, Mike White?
And I think there's even this idea of he's got a girlfriend or there's a woman off campus or something. He just like the disdain in his voice around women
He
characters.
lives with his roommate.
Yeah. Okay. And McGoohan always did a great job when it came to his physicality as an actor and what choices he made when it came to not necessarily costuming, though I imagine he had a hand in it. And I know we'll talk a little bit about some of the controversy around this episode as far as who wrote it. And McGoohan claims that he gave a pass to the script. But his short blonde hair that we see him brushing this is very particular. And he is sweating so much of the time. Like when he's doing the stuff with the bomb at the beginning, he's just completely covered in sweat. And he's got those little wire rim glasses that he wears, and he's just so prim and proper the whole damn time. It is great. I love the way that he will change his look in order to make the best appearance for the character.
Joking about the prisoner, another thing that, I mean, I don't remember, was there controversy surrounding him getting involved in that show? I don't remember.
Mostly around the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that show has its own fucking problems. Those problems being that show, when the show has 4 different orders it can be watched in, and effectively none of them matter because the end of the show is such a bed-shitting moment that it is up there with Dexter, which has shit its own bed twice, and Game of Thrones, which has shit the bed once. Maybe we'll do it again. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. The Prisoner, I mean, he's the actor he is for a lot of people, and he's well known for The Prisoner to a lot of people. But
even before that, with what was it, Danger Man or Secret Agent, whatever it was.
Danger Man, I think so.
Yeah.
And then also the Avengers, right?
Was that someone else? Avengers? I think that was Patrick McNee, who will be in next month's episode.
We're just one episode behind. I get, yeah, but I mean, in The Prisoner, that's such a strange show, but he's so good in it. And so I hadn't seen him in anything else. And so coming to this, I was like, oh, is he going to bring that level of weirdo ass intensity? Yeah. Patrick McGoohan just strikes me as a weird, really intense guy. And then if you do, again, like I mentioned, the James Bond story, I mentioned it when we did the last episode, that is an intense guy. That is an intense feeling to have, because this was not like, oh, I don't want to play James Bond at the beginning, pre-Sean Connery. This is like, no, I don't want to play James Bond after I already know it's making a fuck ton of money. I'm pretty sure it was like they approached him after Connery wanted to leave the role. Or it was early on enough where you're going to be getting on the gravy train, baby, all the way to hog heaven, and you just don't want to because of your deeply entrenched English Protestant morals. I don't know. That's what it feels like. Patrick McGoohan, just really intense dude.
He did some interesting things. Like he directed this movie called Catch My Soul with Richie Havens, where it was a retelling of Othello. He did one called Kings and Desperate Men, which I covered on the projection booth quite a few years ago, where it's basically terrorists taking over a radio station and he's the controversial DJ. Those are the biggest things I know him from. Of course, he showed up in the 70s like crazy, things like Silver Streak or Man in the Iron Mask. This role also reminded me a lot of the warden that he played in Escape from Alcatraz, who is also just straight shooter. This is the way that it goes, and if you don't follow my rules, then you will be punished here on Alcatraz. And he makes a great bad guy in that. And then, of course, Scanners, I think, is the other thing where I always think of him in that. But yeah, not otherwise.
Dad. He's the Phantom's dad, Billy Zane.
It's weird because after the early 80s, I just don't remember him in being in much of anything other than Columbo's, and where he also directed a bunch of episodes too. So that this started this whole friendship between Falk and McGoohan, it just is such strange bedfellows to me. And especially, I think really it's that they're such great actors and can really bond over the craft, which is hilarious to me because of the way that they're playing these two characters. And of course, McGoohan will show up as different characters throughout this, but just to see this real mutton Jeff of these two characters, the tall one who's all dapper and everything in his uniform and not a button out of place, clean collar, everything going on with this guy. And then you've got Columbo, who looks even more shabby than usual in this episode. And especially after a day or two at the academy where he's not shaving. I mean, him at the end of this episode where it looks like he just got out of bed. He looks such a mess, and I love it.
Big shabby energy, as I would say.
Yeah, BSC.
big shabby. Now coming to the ring, big shabby Peter Full. Yeah. Again, that's the other thing that I liked about this episode is by setting it at a place, we get to see Columbo's nighttime routine, and then we get to see morning Columbo. Yeah, the Patrick McGoohan of it all is interesting. You mentioned he just disappears. The prisoner is the last thing he does before this. And then it's Columbo and something called Rafferty, which he was in 13 episodes of. But in terms of the biggest profile thing, it's Columbo. And like you said, he directed some of it as well. But yeah, Patrick McGoohan I feel like once he was in The Prisoner, I don't know, people didn't seem as interested in being on the Patrick McGoohan train, which is unfortunate because I like him as an actor. I think the intensity that he has is well used by him, at least in the roles that I've seen. Because it's not like Number 6 in The Prisoner is a very likable character at all. He's an asshole in and of his own right. And if my memory serves, he hits women in that show as well. And if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if he's supported it. He seems like that old school kind of guy, Sean Connery adjacent, as one would say. But he was in the episode of The Simpsons playing Number 6, which is always fun.
Yeah, I forgot about that, where Homer's running away from Spot or whatever they would call it, the big white ball. Yeah.
The computer wore menace shoes. It's one of the weirder episodes of The Simpsons, but it does do like a odd tribute to The Prisoner in the third act after the third commercial break. And it's, again, Patrick McGoohan made a big impact with that show. I think just recently they were releasing toys from The Prisoner. It was like
they
7
even
was,
did
I
a
think.
remake.
Yeah, we had thought about covering it in tandem when we did The Prisoner on the one season show, which can be found over at weirdingwaymedia.com. But we never got around to we never did what you and I did with Kolchak. We never covered it because I think it was just like, by the time we got to the end of The Prisoner, we were pretty well done for good reason. So at least this episode has cleared my palate with Patrick McGoohan when given the opportunity to be in something that someone else is writing, or maybe not. He is still a quality actor, so his quality isn't dictated by the quality of the writing as much as I thought, because he's still good here, even though there is some controversy.
Yeah, and I remember there being a lot of controversy around that finale of The Prisoner. I don't know if this is true, but I heard some of the makers had to go in hiding afterwards because people were so upset about it. And it's funny because I watched it in conjunction with Lost, because I remember people saying, oh, Lost is very similar to The Prisoner. So I checked out The Prisoner, saw that finale, and was just like, wow, what a mess. And then the Lost finale came out, and you want to talk about shitting in the bed. There you go.
Yep. Yeah,
that turned me off of a lot of prestige television where it's just, I don't want to be burned again. I'm not going to even start this show because I got burned so hard.
I see you, David, from the creators of Lost. Click. That's the way that would be. If someone was like from the creators of The Prisoner, I'd be like, oh, yikes. I'm good. I don't know. Yeah, it's Patrick McGoohan also seems like a Stallone type where I think I know what's best for this because I'm an actor. That was when we talked about Cliffhanger recently, that was the whole question of like actors interjecting themselves into the script writing process. And look, there are plenty of times with something as recent as Longlegs coming out, you hear Osgood Perkins talking about Nick Cage and I worked on the role and he was part and parcel to the process. And there are some actors, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Patrick McGoohan is one of them, clearly that. Again, if you are an actor who has aspirations to be a director, it would lead me to believe you might also have aspirations to have some sort of writing ability, or you believe you have writing ability. None of that would surprise me, again, given that we are talking about Columbo with Patrick McGoohan, and he directed, 2 episodes? 3 episodes? 3.
Yeah. And plus starred in at least one more. I know he's in some of the ones that he directed, and I think he's in 1 or 2 that he didn't direct, like this one.
He's clearly someone who, and again, he's also a theater guy. He's an actor with a capital A.
You get those other actors who they may not have the writing chops, but they will pair up with writers. I know Malcolm McDowell had a playwright that he would work with. I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name, but he would bring him in on projects, even like Caligula, or Tom Cruise is famous for basically having Robert Towne for a long time would do uncredited rewrites on anything that Cruise was involved in.
If you want to have somebody on speed dial, well, in the 90s, it was what? J.J. Abrams and Joss Whedon who were doing a lot of like polish up for people, just like those were the guys. But yeah, for certain actors, have a guy I think is much more impressive for me. If you're an actor who thinks that you can write, there are plenty of actors that do. I mean, to re-mention Stallone, he did write the script for Rocky and he did get nominated.
Going back to that scene with those two sharing the cigar, and I love
let's
the
talk
whole
about
thing.
The cigar, the phallic cigar being shared between two men.
And that whole thing too, how like Columbo's, do I chew the end off of this thing? I'm not really sure. Oh, we'll try this. And I'm like, that little moment where he hands him the little cutter, I was just like, that's really nice. That's a really nice moment between them. And then also where he asks Columbo if he's got a first name. I think one of the few people that have asked if he has a first name. He's just, yeah, but only my wife uses it. I'm like, oh, okay. That's nice.
She calls me Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy Columbo.
That whole thing too, where they're talking about this is a different scene, but when they're at the eating scene and he's talking about butter and
yeah, my wife doesn't margarine.
Yeah. And McGoohan's trying to get information out of him about why was your talk with that cadet unsatisfactory? And he's just like, oh, can I have the butter? Because this, and tells this whole winding story and then finally gets back and he's like, yeah, but what about the cadets?
Columbo's really shagging it up with the dog. He's shaggy dogging it there. And this is something we probably haven't really touched on, but in a lot of ways, if these people hadn't been murderers, I think they probably would be Columbo's intellectual equals. Because again, like the way all these villains are being positioned is they're smart, but Columbo's smarter. Again, I don't know if people need to hear this for their own self-satisfaction, but people who murder people in reality are fucking dumb. Because in this day and age, if you don't have a Ring doorbell, your neighbor probably does, and you're fucking hosed should you be doing anything like that. Just keep that in mind. However, in the world of fiction, these characters have to be written in a certain way to be believably nasty and have to get away with it, which means they have to be somewhat smart. I wouldn't actually say any of the villains in Columbo have been dumb. For the most part, they're like titans of industry or well off or in positions of power that they didn't just get there by accident. If they hadn't been people that were willing to commit murder for power or money or whatever, the likelihood is that they're Columbo's intellectual equal. They might be someone that Columbo would want to be around, but because they're willing to commit murder, Columbo is just a bloodhound on their trail. But because of the way the show is written, we do get to see those character moments between the two of them. But yeah, Miguel Ferrer is the same thing. These guys would be intellectually stimulating each other is probably an understatement for the way it's being written, but you almost feel a level of melancholy with Columbo having to catch these people because they're lost to their community in a way, unfortunately. With Donald Pleasance, he's an amazing winemaker. With Robert Culp, he's an amazing psychologist. Their character flaw is their inability to accept reality, and Columbo is reality bearing down on them from all directions. But again, if one angle were different, if it were just 5 degrees to the left, these two people would be intellectually engaging in a way that they would probably both appreciate.
I love Columbo too. We've talked about this so many times. The fake humility that feels like genuine humility when he's asking questions of McGoohan and he's, oh, it's because of this and this. Don't worry, Lieutenant. There's no reason why you should know this information. It's really obscure. And then Columbo's just like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's not me. It's my mind. I'm very slow, he says. I have to pin everything down. And then McGoohan's just like, I can totally understand. I'm like, yeah, you just think you're so superior. And there's Columbo's just already running circles around you.
Yeah. Now, and this episode is, again, we get to see the full cat. This is a cat and mouse big time, this episode, the back and forth. And it's, again, every frame that Patrick McGoohan is in after the initial murder is just Columbo is bearing down on him, either literally or off screen. Just here he comes, walking in, stumbling and fumbling in.
Oh, yeah. And we do some classic Columbo things. Like there's a great walk and talk between those guys. And at one point, McGoohan's, okay, I'll see you later or whatever. And he starts to walk away, and then Columbo does the whole hand up thing. Oh, wait a minute, sir. Just one more thing. And then has to start asking those questions, and just basically everything you just told me is full of shit. I know it, and I'm about to, call you out on it right here until you can come up with another bullshit excuse that I will then pull apart in about 5 minutes.
I'm surprised neither one of us have mentioned, I think, the most on the nose set piece in the entire episode, possibly in the entire show, is Patrick McGoohan and Peter Falk walking around on a giant chessboard.
Oh my God.
Giant chessboard. It's so on the fucking nose. It's great. I get it, show. Somebody was like, and then they're on a giant checkered chessboard set. Get it? And I'm like, I get it. I think it works, but it is a little on the nose, but that's okay. It's primetime television in the 70s. Fuck it. We have a great practical set, a real location. Let's use it. But it's not lost on us what you're getting at, show. We get it.
Yeah. That they used this location, that they were able to get. I'm trying to remember which school it was, because I want to say it was over in South Carolina. It was the Citadel, right?
In South Carolina, yeah.
They were able to film there, that they moved all of their equipment across the country, or like hired equipment down in South Carolina to shoot this. I'm trying to think if we've had the London episode, and this season feels like they're going to start to branch out a little bit more with some of those things. We both talked about how the London episode was a waste, and you just get that one sequence of him running around with the camera and everything, and the rest of it's just all Southern California. Oh, wow. Merry old England looks a lot like Southern California.
Yeah.
Or the backlot at Universal.
And this is not that either.
No, it looks fantastic. Some of these shots of the two wings of the school with that big chessboard pattern that you're talking about. And I love that it's like a red and gray pattern that you have. As they're walking around on there, I was thinking of either Agnes Varda's The Creatures, or even the earlier episode with, the Manchurian Candidate, the one that was all focused on chess.
The Most Dangerous Match.
Thank you, because I always get that mixed up with the football one with Dean Stockwell.
The one that's the same season.
Yeah. This water isn't chlorinated.
I think it was that. So that's the most crucial game. Okay. And then the other one is The Most Dangerous Match.
Thank you. Yeah. Whereas with this one, I love that you've got the play of By Dawn's Early Light for both seeing that liquor as well as it being right there from the national anthem. I thought that was wonderful.
We play Ravel a bunch of times too in this episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To hear all the music that's going on. And you'll get a lot of that in the next episode too, where there's a band and they're on a ship. And I only know that because I came in the other day and Andrea was watching the next episode. And I said, oh, that's funny. We're going to be talking about that next month. We're talking about the one with McGoohan this month. And she goes, oh, I just watched that because they were doing a marathon.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, sorry, honey, you're going to watch it again.
On the next episode of Columbo, is there going to be a werewolf on this boat?
There's no werewolf, though.
No
I know you really
God,
wish that there was. Yeah.
Especially if it was played by Eric Braeden. Then I would be sign me up, baby.
Braeden would be a really good villain for Columbo.
Yes. I'm surprised to learn that he wasn't in this show.
I think he would be better because, not spoilers for 2 months from now, but the episode playback with Oscar Werner as Harold Von Wick, I think that Braeden would have played it better, but we'll talk about it.
I can't wait.
I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat and I've got a glass eye and I'm annoying people with my questions and yeah, good old Columbo. And the next one is not a McGoohan one. We don't see McGoohan again for quite some time, I don't think.
Yeah, I can't remember when that next one is, where it's the return of Leslie Nielsen.
Frank Drebin, everybody.
Yeah, so he's back and he has, I believe, a bigger role, if memory serves. I want to say it's next season, where it's McGoohan and Nielsen and McGoohan directing.
Yeah, that would be the third episode of the 5th season, Identity Crisis, to do with Superman and Batman.
No, nothing to do with those two. Nobody's named Martha in that episode.
Martha? Why would you say that name?
Yeah, I thought that they used the location beautifully. Even just using the little dorm rooms and everything was nice. And Columbo being so impressed by the size of the dorm rooms and just how different it is. Because I do like, too, he talks about his military experience a lot in this episode. And just yeah, that's great that you're doing this, but I was in the real military and it's not this way.
Yeah, right. It's not like this, though.
Yeah, we played grab ass and knew when it was time to pay our respects and everything. Can you imagine Columbo in the military? Like, he was probably peeling fucking potatoes, knew more than all the generals combined.
I guess the other thing I was disappointed by in this episode is Patrick McGoohan at no point said, "Basing you." That was the fucking thing from The Prisoner, wasn't it? "Basing you." That's what they would always say to each other. Is that what number 5 or number 3 would say? Or
I just remember that. Who is number 1? You are number 4. And yeah, he's number 1. But
yeah, it's a monkey and it's a masked monkey that actually is Patrick McGoohan in a monkey mask. God.
Wow. Yeah,
None of that on Columbo, thank Christ.
Yeah,
Good Lord.
At the very end of this episode, he runs away from Columbo, jumps on a bus, and you never see him again.
At the end, he just goes to the island, and it's just anything with Patrick McGoohan is just, in fact, number 6 getting away and then being like, "Number 6, we've got you back once again." That was always the joke with David Duchovny. I'd be like, it's just Fox Mulder. He's just lost his mind and everything. And just Gillian Anderson walks in at the end. "Mulder, what are you doing in the show as a writer in California named Hank Moody? What are you doing? Undercover for 7 seasons."
You lost me on that one.
Californication. That's like the only other show David Duchovny's been ever given an opportunity to lead for more than like a season or 2, unfortunately.
Aww, poor David Duchovny.
But Patrick McGoohan, I just imagine he's always number 6 because he always tries to get away in that show and he never does.
Mm-hmm. I love Columbo calling Captain Loomis. Loomis is such a great name, but calling Captain Loomis up in the middle of the night. The payphone becomes such a big thing in this episode between that and then later on it's Loomis calls up McGoohan and is just, "Oh, hey, we found more about this apple cider. Hurry up. Come on, let's go." And just apple that cider. Whole finale, the reveal at the end and confronting him with everything. And I just love how everybody's coming down and McGoohan's just like, "Hurry up, get down here." And then Columbo steps in and just does, again, with the hand thing. "Hold on. Belay that order," basically. And I'm just like, oh, this is the mutiny moment right here when Columbo is going to stop McGoohan's order. And then just starts to lay it all out for him. Classic reveal, which is wonderful. And I just, like I said, I really like this episode. I just find it very solid.
I'm with you. It's a well-written episode, well directed. And yeah, the fact that it's on location, I think helps it stand out. And again, the fact that it's really the first bottle episode we've had in a lot of ways also, I think, great performance, great location, great writing, a little fuzzy from time to time in terms of the how Ketchum really being anything other than just, it's fine. But the interactions between McGoohan and Falk are so good that it just makes up for everything. I think is probably underselling it. So
McGoohan won an Emmy for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series, and he also won again for another Columbo episode called Agenda for Murder, which can't remember what season that's in, but yeah, so we'll see more of him. He's probably not going to win an Emmy for the one from season 5. We'll talk about that once we get there. But until then, next month, we'll come back and talk about one that is directed by Falk's old friend Ben Gazzara, back behind the camera. I'm trying to remember if he was in front of the camera at all on the show, if it was always just behind it.
I think it was just behind it, at least up to this point.
I think you're right, yeah. And that one is, yes, as you said, Columbo on a boat, on an MFer boat.
With Patrick McNee, you were right.
Yeah, and the return of Dean Stockwell, as well as the return of Bernard Fox, a.k.a. Dr. Bombay from Bewitched, who is back from England, and now he's on a cruise ship. And our friend Robert Vaughn, who I think this was his only villain. No, he comes back in the Commodore one. He comes back in one of the worst episodes of Columbo. But we will...
Basketball's own Robert Vaughn.
Oh, yeah. I could really use someone to polish my...
Chrome, right? That's what he says. Polish my... What does he say?
I need someone to help sand the floors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to lay some carpet.
So good. Until then, Chris, what are you up to these days?
What I'm up to professionally can be found at weirdingwaymedia.com, where everything that I work on is all the audio diversions that I work on, either producing or being a part of, can be found, other than Rankin on Bond, which can be found at patreon.com/ or projection booth and / Culture Cast at the $10 level or higher. Once a month, you get to hear Richard Haddam of Richard Haddam's Paranormal Bookshelf, Mike White, and I talk about James Bond. And right now, we just released an episode about On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Is that right?
That is correct.
About On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And we were joined by Richard Haddam's wife, Susan Lambert Haddam, and her co-host, Sharon Johnson from 80s TV Ladies. So if that's a thing you should be into, which it is, you know where to find it. What about you, Mike White?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, all the way down to the ranking on Bond. So come on by wordingwaymedia.com and hear more of me talking about movies, Barney Miller. I just released a bonus episode of our old Kolchak tape show. So that is out there, talking with a writer, Paul Terry, who recently wrote a short story collection of Kolchak stories, all for Moonstone Press. Remember how we tried to talk to somebody from Moonstone, couldn't get anybody? Well, we finally did. Though I think Moonstone is going away and whatever. But yeah, this was a great book, and Paul was really fun to talk with. So I hope you enjoy that. Find that at weirdingwaymedia.com or kolchaktapes.com.
Kolchak Tapes, the podcast that never dies.
I want to thank John Walker for our opening theme and Colin Gallagher for our closing theme. And I want to thank you, the listeners, for supporting us and continuing to listen to us jaw on about Columbo. One of my favorite shows, and I imagine it's one of yours as well. Otherwise, why are you listening?
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.